All right, so today we are going to take a learning styles quiz. This is one of my favorite things we do this semester because it can really reveal a lot about how you learn. And it can also show you why school might be sometimes easy for you or really difficult for you. So right now, everyone is going to open their EDN to Unit 5, Reflections, Learning Styles Quiz. There's a link at the top of the page, as you can see here. Click on it once so that it pops up with the window to open the link. And there you will open the link and you will see that there are 20 questions to answer. Now, I know that you guys may not love any of the options you have, but you do have to pick an answer for every single question. So just choose the best option. It won't make or break you. And I will give you 6 minutes on a timer to complete this quiz. Once you finish your quiz, you will get some results. You are going to put these results into your EDN reflection page, and then we are going to watch a short video describing some of the results so that you can understand them a little bit better.
Jonathan studying for a test. And studying, and studying, and studying. And here he is getting his test results. All that studying, and he still got an F. Why? The thing is, there's no one right way to study. Some methods might work great for one person and not at all for others. Everybody learns differently. In order to find a study method that's best for you, it's important to know your learning style. The four most popular learning styles are visual, auditory, reading-writing, and kinesthetic, or hands-on. For most people, one of these methods will work best, but it's also possible for a combination of different styles to be effective. To discover your learning style, you can complete an online assessment. There's a wide variety of them available, consisting of multiple choice questions. However, you can also observe yourself and your previous learning experiences to get an idea of how you learn best. Let's circle back to Jonathan. When he's in class and his teacher is lecturing, he gets distracted pretty easily. Words tend to go in one ear and out the other. But when his teacher starts using visuals, Jonathan finds it easier to focus and understand the material. So he might be a visual learner. Now think about your history. How have you enjoyed learning in the past? Do you prefer watching over listening? Do you enjoy reading instead? Or maybe you learn best by doing, with hands-on experience. If none of these seem to grab you, give them each a try and see which one you tend to drift towards. Each learning style has its own study methods that work best with it. Let's take a look at how Jonathan and a few of his classmates study. As a visual learner, Jonathan finds it helpful to color code his notes. He finds it helps him to organize information and internalize it better. He also creates diagrams while studying, finding that they help him to better understand certain structures and ideas. Jonathan watches videos too, finding them helpful for extra information. Ruby is more of an auditory learner. She likes to study in a group and discuss the material with others. Sometimes she'll read her notes out loud because it helps her to hear what she's studying. In some classes, Ruby will record the lecture, with her teacher's permission of course, so that she can go back and listen to it later. Terrell finds that he learns best by reading and writing. He takes substantial notes during class and reads over them often. When he's trying to memorize something, he'll often write it out. He also makes sure to read and reread any materials his teacher has assigned the class. Raya is a kinesthetic learner. She's got a lot of energy and likes doing things. Labs and hands-on activities help her to understand certain ideas and topics. Sometimes she'll review her material while she's walking around. She also likes to take breaks in order to release some of her energy, allowing her to focus when she returns to studying. All four of these students are studying the same material, but they're doing so in different ways. Now, this doesn't guarantee that they'll all get the same grades, but by determining their learning style and finding study methods that work for them, they just might find themselves getting better results.
So you got scores in 3 different categories: visual, tactile, and auditory. And what's important to remember is that you probably don't fit into just one of these categories, but we all learn a little bit in each of them, and there are just some that are more dominant than others. So, for example, these are my scores. I scored 45% in visual, I scored 35% in auditory, and 20% in tactile. Based on what I know about myself, I'm obviously mostly a visual learner, but I would say after reviewing the different kinds, which we're about to talk about, I would say I'm a combination of visual auditory, which can also be called read-write. And so we're going to go through the different kinds of the different categories of learners so that you can learn a little bit more about them, what works well, what are some study tips, that kind of thing. So, auditory learners, these people learn by hearing and listening. They understand and remember things based on what they've heard. So, these auditory learners will remember information by the way it sounds. So, you do well with people who fluctuate their voice and are not monotonous because you hear the different tones and things like that very well. You often learn by reading things out loud because you have to hear it or speak it in order to really know it and understand it. As an auditory learner, you may hum or talk to yourself or others if you become bored because you want to be hearing something. People may not think that you're paying attention, but you are probably just trying to hear and understand everything that's being said. So some different tips to succeed in the classroom for auditory learners: make sure that you sit where you can hear the teacher. You can have your hearing checked on a regular basis. You should use flashcards to learn new words and read them out loud. Reading stories, assignments, or directions out loud can be really helpful. Record yourself spelling words and then listen to the recording if you're trying to remember how to spell something. Have test questions read out loud to you, or study new material by reading it out loud. So this means that don't just sit down and look at your notes, but actually make sure that you're hearing it or speaking it. Visual learners learn by reading and seeing pictures. So these people understand and remember things by sight. The best thing about these kinds of learners is that they can picture what they're learning in their heads, and then they can learn best by making sure that they can remember those pictures. As a visual learner, these people are usually neat and clean. You often close your eyes to visualize or remember something, and you'll find something to watch if you become bored. You may have difficulty with spoken directions and may be easily distracted by sounds, and you are attracted to color and spoken language like stories that is rich in imagery. So when we have color coordinated things, that kind of thing is related to visual learners. Some tips for succeeding in the classroom for visual learners: make sure to sit near the front of the classroom. It doesn't mean you're the teacher's pet. It means that you can see and be distracted by fewer things between you and the teacher. Have your eyesight checked on a regular basis. Use flashcards to learn new words. Try to visualize the things that you hear or the things that are read to you. Write down key words, ideas, or instructions. Draw pictures to help explain new concepts and then explain the pictures. Color coordinate things. And avoid distractions during study times. So this can mean other people, other sounds, that kind of thing. The visual is really, really important, and that's what that is what should be focused on for visual learners. If you are a tactile learner, which I'm guessing most people in this classroom are, you learn by touching and doing. You understand and remember things through physical movement. So this is a hands-on learner who prefers to touch, move, build, draw, etc. what you learn. And you tend to learn better when there's some sort of physical activity or movement involved. You need to be active and take frequent breaks, and you often speak with your hands and with gestures, and you may have difficulty sitting still. As a tactile learner, you like to take things apart and put things back together, and you tend to find reasons to tinker or move around when you become bored. You may very well be coordinated and have good athletic ability. You can easily remember things that were done, but may have difficulty remembering what you saw or heard in the process. You often communicate by touching, and you may appreciate physically expressed forms of encouragement, such as a pat on the back. Some tips for tactile learners: participate in activities that involve touching, building, moving, or drawing. These are going to help you remember what you're learning. Do lots of hands-on activities like completing art projects, taking walks, or acting out stories. Remember that it's okay to chew gum, walk around, or rock in a chair while reading or studying. Many students think that or have teachers that have gotten them in trouble for some of these things, but it actually helps you learn better if you're a tactile learner when used appropriately. You can use flashcards and arrange them in groups to show different relationships between ideas. Trace words with your finger when you're trying to learn to spell something or remember something. Take frequent breaks during reading or studying periods. Frequent but not long, and also that doesn't mean on your phone. So take frequent breaks where you get up and you walk around and you're active. That way you can be more focused when you come back. Remember that it's okay to tap a pencil, shake your foot, or hold on to something while you're learning. These kinds of things, the doodlers, the pencil tappers, the shakers, these kinds of things actually help you learn better because you're moving. And you can use a computer or your iPad to reinforce learning through the sense of touch. When you touch your iPad and you move things around and that kind of thing, that is actually very good for tactile learners. So spatial is a combination of tactile and visual. So these people learn best when they can associate an image or picture with what they are learning. So for example, this can mean that if you're learning about history, visual learners benefit from looking at a map to see the areas of the historical events that they're studying, and spatial visual learners typically like to draw or doodle and are able to retain information that they are listening to while they're drawing and doodling. Some tips to succeeding in the classroom: try to create a visual diagram, which could mean charts or mind maps or tracing or whatever, to what you are studying. You can even replace words with pictures in your diagram. I know this seems like an unusual way to study, in that it might seem easier to just read over your notes over and over again. But if you read over your notes for an hour and you don't remember anything versus creating some sort of visual diagram in maybe 20 minutes, that can help you remember things a lot better if you score really high in tactile and visual. Also, look up additional pictures and videos relating to what you are studying so that you can connect these visuals with your notes and textbook. So if you are learning Spanish, for example, and you have new verbs, look up pictures to associate with the new verbs. So going to a movie, look up a picture of a movie theater and then look at that while you're studying the verb, and that could help you remember it later. Tactile auditory combination is also called a musical learner. So musical learners really like to work with sound and music. They may play a musical instrument or sing. These people have a really good sense of rhythm, and you'll likely notice the music playing in the background of TV shows or movies when you're watching them. It is likely that you remember best when you associate sound and music with what you are learning. So, use your sense of rhythm and sound to remember the material that you are studying. Create a song or jingle about the material you are learning. Focus on music and sound to create visuals of material that you study. So, for example, if you are learning about World War II, Google popular music from the time to help associate events from that time period with the music that people listen to. Use music to boost your spirit and motivation when you study. If certain music gets you energized, play it before you study. If there is certain music that relaxes and focuses you, you should play that during your study time. And lastly, use music to anchor your emotions and state of mind. When you need a boost at test time, you can recall the state of mind you were in while you studied without needing the music. So what this means is that if you listen to the same kind of music while you're studying a certain subject, and then you think about the kind of music you were listening to while you're taking the test, it will actually help you remember it better. And then the last type of learner is a read-write or a visual auditory learner. Reading and writing is a learning style where individuals are able to absorb and retain the most information through reading and writing text. The main methods of learning for read-write learners are reading over their lecture notes, writing essays, reading through textbooks, writing notes, etc. You'll notice that these are a lot of things you find in a normal school environment. The reading-writing learners prefer to have information displayed in word and text form because that's easiest for them to absorb and store when they need it for the test. Teachers tend to lean towards this reading-writing learning style because it is very easy to replicate and distribute. So what that means is most of us have textbooks, even though a lot of times now they're digital. And in textbooks, you read it, you write something about it, answer questions, and then you have to talk about it later on the test in written form. So read-write learners often do very well in school because school is kind of built for read-write learners. Some ways that these people succeed in the classroom is converting their notes by reducing it down from 3 pages to 1 page. Write out words over and over again. Read your notes silently over and over again. Do any of the extra or suggested reading because the reading is what you remember. Organize diagrams, graphs, etc. into statements. This graph shows that ... You know what that means. Use a digital device to arrange your ideas and to try different words. Imagine your list arranged in multiple choice questions and distinguish each from each. So if these things are not natural to you, then it makes sense why school might be harder for you. Because a lot of school is geared towards read-write learners, and a lot of teachers are geared towards read-write, not necessarily because that's their favorite or that's the easiest, because it's the most convenient way to distribute information, and it's been done for a very long time. So, what does all of this mean? What can I learn from the fact that I have a learning style? So let's say that you scored 55% auditory. This does not mean that you can only learn from auditory methods, okay? So this doesn't mean that you should be cutting out all visual and tactile methods of learning from your life because you scored really high in auditory. All of us learn in all different categories. We just need to know ourselves well enough to know how to study and retain the material. So what I recommend doing is recognizing how you learn best. So by taking this quiz, if you know that you're a musical learner, then you can use those methods for studying the material. Okay? I also need you guys to understand that every lesson is not going to be catered to your learning style specifically. We could take this quiz for everyone in the class, and we're all going to score a little bit differently, which means we all learn a little bit differently. And teachers cannot cater to absolutely everyone in the classroom. Someone who is distracted by other people would really struggle in a class with someone who insists on tapping a pencil. And so who wins? The person who's distracted by the pencil or the person who needs to tap the pencil in order to be focused? You understand that this is a difficult environment for teachers to be around several different learning styles, and so you have to understand that they're all not going to be catered exactly to you, and you have to learn anyways, which is why it's important that you know your learning style more than anybody else. Communicate with me or with your teacher when you are not understanding something. The best way to have your teacher help you is to make sure that you are communicating with them. And also work with each other to productively help each other learn. So what this means is that if somebody is tapping a pencil over and over again and it's super annoying to you, and they're not doing it to be annoying, they probably don't even realize they're doing it, please remember that and keep that in mind. If someone else wants the room completely silent because that helps them study and that helps them learn, please remember that they're not trying to be obnoxious or a prude. It's probably because that's the environment that helps them learn the best. And so we all have to make sacrifices, we all have to compromise and work together in order to do the best.